Formula One doesn't usually gamble. It calculates, it hedges, it spreads risk. But Red Bull just did something very different. They didn't just build a new car. They didn't just prepare for a regulation reset. They didn't just future-proof their operation. They chose a side, and that side was Max Verstappen. Because the RB26 isn't a neutral machine. It isn't a driver-friendly car. It isn't designed to flatter multiple styles or protect fragile confidence. The RB26 is a statement, a warning. And for the rest of the grid, a problem. Here's the uncomfortable truth most fans haven't connected yet. Red Bull didn't design the RB26 to win races. They designed it to maximize one driver. And if you're wondering why that matters now, stay with me, because once you see what Red Bull actually doubled down on, you'll understand why the next era of Formula One may already be decided. Let's start with the fear. 2026 was supposed to reset everything. New power units, new aerodynamics, less downforce, less drag, more electrical deployments, smaller cars, lighter weight, a grid shakeup designed to break dominance. In theory, this should have been Red Bull's most dangerous moment. Adrian Newey gone, Honda gone, power unit uncertainty, political pressure from rivals, and a driver lineup question looming. So what did Red Bull do? They didn't retreat, they went all in, and they did it because of one cold, ruthless calculation. Max Verstappen is not dependent on stability. He thrives in instability. That matters more in 2026 than any engine spec ever will. The RB26 is being developed around a philosophy most teams are terrified of: lower aerodynamic grip, higher mechanical sensitivity, greater reliance on throttle modulation, braking precision, and driver-controlled rotation. In other words, the car will move a lot. Most drivers hate that. Max Verstappen doesn't just tolerate it, he demands it. This is where Red Bull's bet becomes terrifying for everyone else, because historically, regulation resets expose drivers who rely on predictable platforms, drivers who need the car to come to them, drivers who wait for feedback before committing. Verstappen doesn't wait. Telemetry data over the past 5 seasons shows Verstappen consistently operating at higher average slip angles than his teammates. Sometimes by margins engineers openly admit they don't fully understand. That means he's comfortable extracting speed from a car that is already sliding. That's not aggression, that's control. And Red Bull knows it. Here's the part nobody likes to talk about. Every major Red Bull teammate struggle, Gasly, Albon, Perez, wasn't just psychological, it was architectural. Those cars were designed around a driver who rotates the car before the apex, commits throttle earlier than simulation models suggest is optimal, and uses rear instability as a tool rather than a threat. Now pause for half a second. If you're enjoying this breakdown, do me a favor. Subscribe now. Not because YouTube wants it, but because you'll want a front row seat if this theory starts proving itself race by race. Now let's escalate this. The RB26 is being designed in a post-DRS mindset. Active aero will play a role, but not as a crutch. Energy deployment will matter more than peak horsepower. Exit speed will matter more than straight-line drag. That is Max Verstappen territory. Look at the data from 2023 to 2025. Verstappen consistently gained more lap time after the apex than any other driver on the grid. Not in braking, not in top speed, in how early and confidently he went to full throttle while others hesitated. That skill becomes priceless in 2026. Because with heavier electrical deployment, traction phases become chaotic, power delivery won't be linear, grip windows will be narrower, and cars will punish indecision brutally. Ask yourself this: who panics less under unpredictable power delivery, Max Verstappen or literally anyone else? Exactly. Here's where Red Bull's decision stops being bold and starts being cold-blooded. They knew the RB26 would be difficult. They knew it wouldn't suit everyone. They knew it would expose weaknesses, and instead of softening the car, they leaned into it. Why? Because history shows Verstappen learns faster than regulations change. In 2014, when hybrids arrived, the best drivers weren't the most aggressive, they were the most adaptive. In 2022, when ground effect returned, Verstappen mastered ride height sensitivity faster than anyone. In 2026, with power deployment and aero balance in flux, Red Bull expects the same pattern. And here's the uncomfortable part for rivals. Red Bull isn't afraid of losing drivers. They're afraid of losing their advantage. So they protected the one thing that guarantees performance across chaos: Verstappen's driving profile. Let's break this illusion. RB26 is not built to be the fastest car. It's built to be the most exploitable car by the right driver, and Max is that driver. Quick pattern interrupt. If you had to choose between a car that's perfect 70% of the time or a car that's terrifying but unbeatable in the hands of one person, which wins championships? Yeah, Red Bull knows the answer. Now let's talk pressure. Because doubling down on Verstappen also means something else. Red Bull is willing to alienate everyone else. They're not chasing harmony, they're chasing inevitability. RB26. Development feedback loops are reportedly shorter, more aggressive, and more driver-specific than in previous cycles. That's not normal. That's not team-friendly. That's a franchise player model, and that tells you everything. Here's a cliffhanger worth sitting with. What happens when other teams realize too late that they designed safe cars, while Red Bull designed a weapon? Because that realization is coming. And when it does, copying won't help, because you can't copy a driver's instincts. Now let's zoom out. This decision also explains why Red Bull seems unusually calm about 2026 engine politics, about rivals hyping power numbers, about speculation. They're not chasing peak output, they're chasing drivability under stress. And Verstappen is the best stress driver of his generation. He doesn't spike inputs. He doesn't overcorrect. He doesn't emotionally react to instability. That's why crashes don't define him. That's why chaos doesn't break him. That's why Red Bull didn't blink when designing a car most drivers would call undrivable. Mid-video check. Like the video if you think the RB26 is already being underestimated, because trust me, the comments section is going to get spicy on this one. And speaking of comments, I want your take. Does Red Bull's Verstappen first strategy guarantee dominance or risk collapse if anything goes wrong? Drop it below. I'll be reading. Now for the consequence. If the RB26 performs as Red Bull expects, we're heading into an era where the conversation shifts from best car to best driver car relationship. And Verstappen might already have won that battle. Because while other teams hedge, Red Bull commits. While others balance, Red Bull sharpens. While others hope the reset levels the field, Red Bull believes chaos widens gaps. This isn't arrogance, it's pattern recognition, and it's why the RB26 might not look dominant at first glance, but could quietly become unstoppable once others start doubting their own machines. Final thought before we land this. Formula One resets are supposed to end eras, but sometimes they reveal who was always ahead of the curve. Red Bull didn't double down on Max Verstappen because they had no choice. They did it because in a sport built on uncertainty, he is the safest bet in chaos. And if you want to understand how this all plays out on track, the next video you should watch breaks down why unstable cars keep creating dominant champions. It's on your screen right now, don't miss it.